Hey guys, Dirk Knudsen with you, Hillsboro Historical Society. Also, I'm the editor of the Hillsboro Herald. And here we have that spinning globe. Look at all that beautiful blue that we call the Earth. And I'm going to do just a quick chat with you guys about a couple of places in our community. It's a little late, so excuse my froggy voice, but there's our beloved state of Oregon and our Willamette Valley here, as you can see. And let's bring it in to our little nape, the Tualatin Valley here, and mighty town of Hillsboro. So we're going to be using Google Earth, and I've got a few tabs turned on, just the bodies of water are turned on. This is a 1985 aerial photo, and it's the oldest one that Google Earth has. Excuse me, yeah, 1985, so we're going to step that forward. Let's see what we can work with here. Okay, there's the 84 photo, excuse me for the slow lead-in. And let's come into Hillsboro a little closer now. You can see North Plains and Forest Grove. And we're just going to come on in. And today, I thought we would come on down and talk about Reedville, because Reedville is a place a lot of us are interested in right now because it's growing a lot. And so there's the 85 photo. I'm moving the slider in the upper corner here. So here's the 1990 aerial photo of Aloha and Reedville, and you can certainly see there were plenty of homes in Aloha by 1990. But you see this area here, this is South Hillsboro, and there just wasn't a lot going on. So it's going to be useful to step forward to 1994 where we get a really nice black and white image. Over here we have, so I'm going to go ahead and point out some roads. Here's River Road coming directly south out of Hillsboro. You can see the Tualatin River, Meriwether Golf Course over here. Just to kind of orient you, this is going to be Rosedale Road right here, I believe. And there is 209th coming right along the west edge of what's known as Aloha. And then here's Aloha, formerly called Wheeler's Crossing. And so, you know, Reedville was named after Simeon Reed. And Simeon Reed was a real dude. He and his partner, I think it's William Ladd. I'd have to get my Ladd and Reed files out. But this was their farm, that the 640 acres or so, that's now the real thrust of South Hillsboro. And you're going to see that come to life here in just a minute. This was their farm, and it had quite a, the Ladd and Reed farm had quite a lengthy history. Here in this photo, we can zoom in and even see parts of the old farm here. These were huge grain silos. The house and the barns were back here. This property, the Ladd and Reed farm, had a 13-sided barn, much like the one, although much bigger than the one you might see at the McMinimum's Roadhouse, which was the Embry farm. And so there is going to be a similar barn on that property. So back when we were in junior high, you know, some of the kids would come out here and play. We had a classmate, unfortunately, Jimmy Kingsley, or Jim Kingsley we called him, who was in one of these grain towers, and these things were really big. I can't get really any terrain or scale on them right now, but these were, they were in there screwing around back in the 70s, and inside one of the silos, and the handle got pulled overhead. One of them pulled on a handle, and down came, you know, millions of pounds of grain from overhead, and Jimmy lost his life at that time. And a lot of us might remember that story. You can see how TD Highway has this bend in it, and this bend has bothered the state of Oregon for a long time. They want to wipe out this is the J.B. Imlay Sons grain elevators that were here, or the loading docks for grain that came in off this farm. That is where Harvey the White Rabbit is now. This is the area that was called Reedville was in here, and over here was Huber, and the Huber station, which is a water tower, was there. Here's TV Highway, but see the big wow in the highway? And so the old train yard here in the loading area was put together and built by J.B. Imlay, and his granddaughter, Kathy Imlay, is a good client and friend of mine, and she's in her mid-90s now. And so she's done some real estate business with me. Just looking a little closer, there was a very significant home here at the end of the beautiful tree-lined driveway. I think these were cottonwoods, if I remember from when I was a kid. And then in '94, these wooded areas, of course, we always had rumors of graves on this site, and I'll say it's unsubstantiated, but I can also say with some certainty from first-hand accounts I've been told this farm probably definitely had graves on it at some point. I'm trying to get my globe to move around like it's supposed to. It's not wanting to. Okay, there's the straight down view. So this big tree here, some of my historian friends online have wondered about the tree. We're going to see that tree here as we step through time, but keep an eye on that tree. It's a very significant tree. And then the Southern Pacific Rail line is here, and there are some old haul roads and farm access roads that still run through here to this day. There's some county right-of-ways in there. So there's the orientation. We've also talked about, this week, we've talked about the farm of David Hagg, H-A-G-G Hagg, and that is right here. There's 400 acres here that David Hagg owned. His sons were Oscar and Henry Hagg, and Henry Hagg Lake is named after one of his boys. And this is the Try or Walker farm, which is now known as Arbor Vineyards. Also another family. Over here is now where the reserve golf course is, just to give you some orientation there. And then the Ruprecht family had a dairy farm here for a very long time. There's a lot of families. The Riggerts are over here. The Santoro farm is right in through here. And so a lot of you that know Aloha history and Reedville history better than me will recognize those names. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Hagg farm because it came up here this week on our history page. So let's look at in 1994. I believe this is Life Christian here on 209th, but there was a McGinnis Lane is here. The McGinnis family was very well known for their farm here on the end. Very well liked family, still in the area. Shout out to the McGinnises. And then let's turn on our. I kind of don't want to spoil the surprise and turn on the roads just yet, so I'm going to leave them off for a minute longer. Down this long lane, you would come back to the David Hagg farm. And although it doesn't look like it, these barns here were absolutely enormous structures, especially this one. And so they were cultural resources. They were taken out. I couldn't remember what year they were taken out, but they were two of the largest barns, and this was a dairy here. The Haggs had a dairy, and they were a Swedish family that came over in the late 1800s and established this farm. Having said that, let's line up from 1994 and step through time. Here we go. Here we are at the year 2000. At this point, the property had been taken out of production as a dairy and had been sort of done hay and wheat and those things over the years. But they had gone into the Christmas tree business. So we just jumped 10 years from 1990 to 2000, and Google Earth just did not have, or does not have at this time, anything more accurate that we can work with. But you get a sense of the scale of the Hagg farm. Butternut Creek runs right through here, which you can see here on the map. And you get a little better sense for that barn there. There's no real way to do dimensions on this, or I can't get a 3D view of this. I can here in a minute, probably using another source. So in fact, I'm going to see if I might be able to do that right now. So just hang on a second. I just jumped over to Google Maps, and although I can't go back in time with Google Maps, you can see here this has located the Reserve Vineyards and Golf Club, Rosedale Road, River Road, the things I just went over with you. And so the Hagg Farm, you can see a little bit of topography on this. Butternut Creek does have some drop. I've been down in there. It's 30 or 40 feet from the top of this bank down to the bottom of Butternut Creek, so it's a pretty substantial creek. I was involved over 10 years of my life in putting the Reserve Vineyards and Golf Club together, and it actually had this beautiful lake. I forget what we called it. It was Unger's Pond. There was another name for it at the time. It was a reservoir. And it just basically springs up out of the ground by the movie theaters and works its way down through here as it goes towards the Tualatin as well. But here is the area that we're working with and looking at today. Okay, and so now I've oriented the map. So up is north, Butternut Creek is here, and here we are back in 2000. You can see the reserve has been built. It was built in the late 90s. It was probably just being constructed at that time with its massive clubhouse and all of that. So again, Hagg Farm is here, church is here, and here's our barns that we talked about a minute ago. Let's move forward. 2001, tree farm is happening. I went there and got trees before. They were doing a lot of different trees, like a whole patch of blue spruce and things like that. 2002, just a different look. Come in a little closer on those barns. We really just quite can't get in there to see that, but darn it all anyway. Let me see if I can get a little perspective. That's maybe a little bit. I can tip the horizon just so much. Okay, I think that maybe will help. Okay, there they are. And you can really get in there. Now you can see, here's the silo looking straight down in it. You can definitely see that the barns were coming apart. At this point, the Haggs didn't own the property anymore. A guy named Joe Hanauer bought this, and Joe Hanauer is a big investor, and he was one of the co-founders of Grubb & Ellis Real Estate out of California. I've had a chance to meet with Joe a couple of times. Boy, did he hit a home run with this property, because I don't even want to tell you what the number was he paid for this land. It was something between $800,000 and maybe $2 million for that, all of that property, which the value's gone up on 75 times or something. Let's step forward 2002, later in the year. Another one from 2002. Google Earth was busy that year, and they commissioned these photos. They buy photos from people. Here you can see 2003, a not so good picture from August of 03. A little better picture, but what happened? 7 of 2004, the barns are gone. So let's step back one more step. Okay, 7 of 2003, there's the barns. And we'll just kind of take a look. This is the farm here. We'll just kind of see a farewell shot of these before they're taken down. Let me pull something up really quick. There you go. And it didn't occur to me that I've had this photo for a long time. I'm not sure anybody else might have this photo. This actually came from Eric Lucas's mother, who I did a nice oral history with. And she was a Wiesenbach. And the Wiesenbachs are a well-known family. I believe Bonnie Wiesenbach was married to Henry Hagg. So this is the farm that David Hagg built his family. And even this photo doesn't do this justice in terms of scale, but you see the farmhouse here, barn here. Again, this is at the end of that long lane. And this is kind of a cow shed, and this is probably the milking parlor or the milking barn but the hayloft in this thing was big enough to play football in. Here's the silo. You saw the hole a minute ago, and not sure if this was the milking parlor or not, but these were big milk containers on the side here. And then they had a bunch of ancillary buildings. So look at the proud, beautiful farm that these Swedish people built. And I believe this is Bonnie and Henry Hagg. Quite a couple. And so it says here, Bonnie Hagg, sister to Guy, Julie, Major, and Daisy. Amberzine Wiesenbach and Julius Wiesenbach's children. Henry Hagg was president of the Mayflower Milk Company in Portland for many years. That's true. Hagg Lake was named after him. He made many trips to Washington, D.C. to get it built, and boy did he ever. And Henry was a huge supporter of irrigation in the valley, which stabilized our farmers, and irrigated farmland, of course, is unbelievably important. And then also, I think equally important to Henry was flood control. Without Hagg Lake, the Tualatin River would flood, and we wouldn't be enjoying the valley the way we do now. So Henry's to be thanked for that. And this was Bonnie and Henry's dairy farm, as I mentioned. It used to be off of 229th in Reedville, but it's now 209th. And this was a Christmas card to the family. There's a little better look at it. So pretty cool. And let's take one more break and I'll bring you one more picture. Facebook, this started this whole post this week, was Ryan Sayer at the Facebook group You Know You're From Aloha. That's a good one to join if you like Aloha history. Just like We Remember Hillsboro, there's just some phenomenal history sites on Facebook. That's certainly one of them, but he had started out with a rougher version of this image. This was Images of America, Aloha Reedville book, which is an awesome book. You can still find copies of it, but there's a really nice picture of that barn. And with those cows there, you really get a sense for the scale, right? It's very possible when this building was shot, some of those ancillary buildings, certainly the houses were gone. This certainly has more of a feel of a milking room or a place for a separator to be, and they bring the milk in and sterilize it and get it ready to go to market. These things here, because I'd been in that hayloft before, these are 10 feet high. So this is, let's see, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50. This barn's about 60 feet high at its peak, and that could absolutely hold tons. And look at those beautiful, those are either jerseys or, they're a Swiss cow. You farmers will have a better handle on that than me. I was never a dairy farmer. So the comments here, let's see if we can pull them up. There was a lot of good comments and a lot of discussion that went on here, as well as some photos. So I wanted to bring up this photo. This was the photo. Let me move my recording device over. So this was the photo that I shot. I happened to be driving by when they were tearing down the silo in 2017 for housing. So that's one of the last milk rooms there. The barn would have been just to the left off this picture, and you see the silo out back here, what's left of it. And so Polish Homes was rocking and getting ready to do some things at that time. And I was lucky enough to go out there. And the barns and the buildings certainly could probably not have been saved. It was too far gone. They were culturally significant. I'm not sure the proper hearings were had. That's neither here nor there. Now over to another panel that I posted this week on that thread, and this is from the interior cover of that book. On the cover, dairy cows graze near the barns and corrals on the David Hagg and Sons farm at Reedville in 1937. So the cover shot was from 1937. The farm exceeded the national record for butterfat production in 1936. For a herd of more than 50 cows, David and Augusta Hagg purchased acreage in 1890 next to Simeon and Amanda Reed's farm. We talked about Simeon Reed a little while ago in Washington County, Oregon. For years, While developing their dairy, they cut and cleared timber from their land. By 1909, the Haggs were exporting milk and cream to Portland. Brothers Henry and Oscar became the second generation to manage the family business. Graduates of the Oregon Agricultural College, which, for those of you that don't know, that's now known as Oregon State University. So both Henry and his brother Oscar, graduates of Oregon Agricultural College, OAC. They applied scientific methods to maximize the farm's efficiency and profitability. Dairy stock was selected based on production records, and beet pulp instead of silage used for winter feed. Very interesting science these guys were applying to their farm. Henry and Oscar were dairy industry leaders and founding members of the Aloha Grange. Henry championed agricultural education and research throughout Oregon. Oscar was president of the Oregon Dairymen's Association, director of the Oregon Dairy Council, and a dairy marketing specialist at Oregon State University Extension. And that photo, thanks to Alfred A. Monner for that photo. Now a little add-on to the Hagg story, and we'll go back to the maps, but this is Eric Lucas, who's a regular on Facebook and a good friend and a guy who really looks out for history. This is his grandfather, Guy Avon Wiesenbach, at 18 years old on his Tennessee Walker horse on Johnson Street in Reedville about 1905. That was really quite a horse, and the Wiesenbachs, as I said, had a lengthy history and were closely tied to the Haggs, and there was a lot of community around Reedville, grade school, and the church there, along with the Imlays. Those families really held down a very bustling little community of Reedville when Hillsboro was far into the western distance. Okay, I'm sorry to keep jumping around, but as I'm looking at my pictures, I just realized Kathy Imlay gave me some of these documents. They're stored in a security box. What you're looking at is original deeds from the Ladd and Reed farm, signed to the James Imlay family. And this blue that you see is in fact an original survey of the property where Harvey Marine is. And so if you haven't seen one of these documents, this is something else. Deed Ladd and Reed farm to James B. Imlay for recording this 21st day of September AD 1894. And it's signed by E.L., I think that's McCormick, recorder of Washington County. Here's another deed, same thing, but this was a number of lots that were sold. I.E.L. McCormick, recorder of conveyances for Washington County, signed these. And these were signed by Representative Reed's company. And they were given to J.B. Imlay, James Imlay. And then these are the deeds from James Imlay to John Morgan. And right there is Mr. Ladd's signature. And if you look up Simeon Reed and Ladd would be Ladd's edition in Portland, executed in the presence of my treasurer, J.E. Boynton. And so these are in my care, thanks to Kathy Imlay. We'll keep them for the Hillsboro Reedville History Nuts. And so anyway, all the legal stuff's in there, and these are like abstracts, so there's parchment inside of these as you fold them out. Okay, I promise you a little bit of Hagg history, J.B. Imlay history, Simeon Reed history. Let's get back to the map. Okay, back on the map. Here we are in back in our timeline in 2003. And boy, does that put that in perspective now when you realize the lane came in here, came back to the farm, and we'll orient you guys the way that picture was shot. So when you see that image of the big barn, it's going to be, which way was that shot? I got to spin it around. Sorry about that. It's this way. Okay. Not to make everybody dizzy, but the long private lane we saw on there on one of the photos came down to the The houses were here. I would love to go out and dig that. It's a little too late for that now, but this was what was left of the big barn. This was the smaller barn, and then the homes were, clustered in here, and there's the silo back behind the barn. So really that picture shot in 54 would be kind of at an angle if we could put it at an angle. So there we are in 03, and here we jump to 04, and the barn is gone. Just the foundations are left and the silo. And then as you saw, I was there in 2017 to kind of see what happened. Then by June of 2005, they're gone. So we'll take a look at, let's go back the way we had the map. There's the reserve golf course coming up. And let's bring Reed's property up here. So let's just now look at what has happened since 2005. I'm going to step you through some dates here. Here, I'm going to give some conflict here. There's another shot from 2005. There's 1,500 acres of farmland there, farmed by the Dobbins family, and they had a lot of history on this property. And 2005 still. Keep stepping through. You can see the wheat coming off the Ladd and Reed farm. And the Hagg farm won't change much at this point because it's in tree production. Now we're in June of 2006. Another shot from 2006. 2007. The colors are changing now in July after the harvest is coming off. Fields are being plowed. Now we've jumped to 2009, and you'll notice these are blue spruce because you can see the color in the trees with this particular photo, and you can kind of just appreciate the different things the Haggs were doing here along Butternut Creek. A lot of blue spruce and probably some pines. You may have been doing a little bit of a nursery there too, if I remember right, but here's the barn. The barn site, what's left of it is everything's gone there. And then over here we see red clover coming off. Not much change, but they're just plowing. At this particular time they were taking the hay off, and that property produced a lot of hay. Okay, 2009. Here's 2010. Not much change. You remember now the economy's collapsed at this time, and so we're not going to see a lot of change. I hasten to did not mention, that the Sisters of St. Mary's owned this property on the right here at the Ladd and Reed farm for a long time, and there's a whole story about how they got it, which I'll tell at a different time. But they sold it to a group of investors who then sold it to Newland. Newland bought it from them, and Newland's the company out of Canada that's developing it today. Still in 2010, there's 2013, 2014, 2015, a nice quiet little community still, Reedville still hanging in there. 2017, now we're going to see some changes. So we see in 2017 the beginning of the extension of Cornelius Pass, and we're seeing the extension of Alexander Street, I think that is Alexander, coming south. So now we'll step through to 2018. Now the roads are starting to come together. Many of you will remember when they were excavating this area where Hagg's farm was, and then in here as well. More in 2018. Houses hadn't started yet, but the infrastructure was going in. In 2019, the first few homes were built on the Hagg property. This would be, I think it's Lennar who's building down here, or Horton coming in along here. And then they put in this wonderful circular park here. So let's go ahead and flip on our roads at this point, because I think we're going to have to let the cat out of the bag here. Okay, so that's the road system that's there now. most of those are being built. And then over here on the Ladd and Reed farm, big changes, right? So the first few foundations were going in, the first pot of homes were going in around this circular thing, and now we're seeing big change happen. 2019 was a great year for sales for them. 2020, the housing really took off over here. McGinnis Lane is, for the most part, untouched with small acreage owners down in there, including the McGinnis, and I have a client down there as well. And now, boom, 5 of 2021. We'll come way in on this. Really busy here with their production, and Polish Homes has all of this back in here. And I'll show you a map to get you oriented here in a second, and then you can see over here the projects that were really did take off in South Hillsboro at that time. And this is Cornelius Pass. As we speak, there is a bridge being put in here in 2022 to forge over. Cornelius Pass will flow across and eventually end up out by Rosedale, and it very well could punch out and meet the intersection there at Hazeldale where Farmington Road is. And then I think we got one more photo here, maybe 6 of 2021. Yeah, that's the last photo. And when 2022's photo comes out, it's going to be something else, because it's just, the growth out there's been stunning. They were very lucky, that group of developers was, and it depends where you fall on the whole development scheme. This was not an area I thought should have, 8,000 residences going in, or some such number, just because TV Highway can't handle it. I think we all know that. The reserve sits to the right here, and 229th is for the most part undisturbed. So I wanted to wrap up here with our Hagg barn discussion by leaving the roads on, but let's ghost ourselves back in time, or not ghost, but let's take ourselves back in time. Some 96. So the roads have stayed on this point, but where is our Hagg barn at? There it is. So for those of you that live on Southwest Engelman, and there are homes going on back there right now in Southeast 78th, and on Southeast DeLine, which is being extended, you folks are on top of hallowed ground, if you will. You may find some things in your you very well may find some things in your backyards popping up. Not bodies, just things. Farm stuff. Yeah. So, fun stuff. I went on a little too long, and that's a better shot of where the roads are today. It's awfully cool to be able to go back there and see that. I'm going to close out with one cool thing, but I really want to take my hat off. I want to take my hat off to the Ladd and Reed farm, the people of Reedville, all of you, many great friends and neighbors from Reedville. Being an Orenco, Hillsboro boy myself, although I did have a stint in Shoals, so I had a good life here in the valley, and living kind of all over the place. Right, here's the final gimme for you guys. Let me move this map up a little bit. This is kind of a USGS, aerial map, or however you want to say it. The cool thing about this map, here's our McGinnis Lane, here's our Hagg Lane, right? And they're actually showing some of the new homes going in on this map. So it's a modern map, today's map. And I can probably turn this on to, okay, that's kind of cool. So there's a LiDAR scale. This shows relief of the earth, and it'll show impressions and foundations and things like that. And there's our satellite. We just talked about that. So the barns are right in here. But let's stay on the topo, okay? And for your viewing pleasure, let's bring up a layer here on this map that I helped develop this with a friend of mine. And this is one of the coolest things a historian will ever find, especially in Oregon. What we're doing now is we're overlaying the donation land claim map over this area. Let me take it all the way up here. And that is the master's donation land claim. It's not that well written, but the master's donation land claim is claim 46, 638.48 acres. This land that the Haggs bought was east of the Charles Stewart claim, which is more Hazeldale. And we've talked about the Stewarts before on some of my recordings. And then this is the William Robertson claim, claim 45, 640 acres. That was the Ladd and Reed farm. So it looks like the Hagg farm actually was probably not claimed at that time. So you see how these have lines. So that's actually the 1 mile by 1 mile is a section of land. So William Robertson got his section there. Masters has his section here, and the Masters house is being preserved as for the future. It's just off of 209th, and then I can get into other claims, but we're going to do one other thing here. We're going to turn on the Oregon Survey from 1865, and there's the Oregon Survey, and we see here that R. Huguet had a house there. A.J. Masters had his house here, and a lost schoolhouse of all things was right here on the Portland road from Portland to Lafayette, which came along here. So let's see where that schoolhouse might have been in 1865. You can still see it there, right? And this is the kind of thing planners need to do when they're naming streets and stuff. So there was a historic schoolhouse here right where Blanton comes on to the new property. And then the Robinson house, which ended up being where Ladd and Reed had their place. He had a house and a large barn right here along what's now TV Highway. So these old rights-of-way, they stayed pretty much the same, but I had not paid attention to the fact there was a schoolhouse there. Masters had a house here. There was rumors, vicious or not, that Masters had some involvement with some level of slavery here in our valley. We wouldn't think about that, but it was here. And then as we get down here, we're getting into another land claim altogether. So the 1865 survey, when I turn that on, is simply going to show us anything that was built there. And this says Charles G. I think that's McConnell and wife, or McGill and wife, east 430 acres. So this is when there's being some land divisions done and all of that. So pretty cool to see everything in its historical context. Dirk Knudsen with you. Visit us at We Remember Hillsboro on Facebook, thehillsboroherald.com, and I do a lot of work here in Washington County with various historians. So I probably got some things wrong, but I hope you enjoyed this 39 minutes spent with me and learned a few things, and we'll catch you on the next recording. Okay? Take care, everyone.